And it's time for another episode of Tech Talk Live. It's Tuesday, and that's time for entertainment. And joining us today is one of my favorite friends, Michael Levy, president of Alta Audio. And you might have seen him on the show before. Just a stunning brand, stunning equipment, great guy. Michael, welcome. How are you, sir?
Oh, pleasure to see you. I'm doing fine. How are you?
Oh, I couldn't be much better. I'm live. I've got a wonderful guest, and we have some really cool stuff to talk about. So it's going to be a good one tonight. So we've got a couple of things lined up. So we're going to talk about Alta Audio, all the new things there, introduce folks to the brand for those that aren't aware of it, and then we're going to get into a really interesting subject. Right? We're going to talk about the difference or not difference, or really, what is a comparison of home theater speakers versus hi-fi speakers, audiophile style speakers, and is there really a difference or not, or should there be, or what is the reality of that? And we'll talk about that a little bit first. But let's get things kicked off with you. So if you could let people know a little bit about yourself, who you are and your background, and how this whole Alta Audio thing got started.
Well, hi, my name is Michael Levy. I'm president of Alta Audio. And how this entire thing started, as far as Alta is concerned, was literally a challenge. I've been designing speakers since 1980. And back about 10 years ago, a good friend of mine challenged me to design a new speaker. And I looked at him and said to him, hey, this is not a cookbook thing. It's not like you go and you get yourself ingredients and you just put them together and there you go. I said, if I'm going to do something, I'm going to do something new and really make a difference in what is available sonically for people. So what was that difference? What was it I was looking for? And what was the founding of Alta Audio? It was the concept of doing something I had been told from the beginning when I first started as a loudspeaker designer never to do. And that was to try to sound as close to the live performance as possible. To not be a stereo system, but be a reproducer of an event. And the answer to that, how to do that, was in the actual beginnings of the company. We put together a group of people, between about a dozen and 20 people, who were intimately familiar with the sound of natural live instruments. And that included a Grammy Award-winning recording engineer. That included a conductor of symphony orchestra, and several people who are in the audio business, high-end audio people. But they were all tasked to go out, live performances, and the definition of live was that if the power went out, the concert could go on unchanged.
Right.
It's for natural instruments only. I wanted them to then go home and if they could get a recording of where they were playing and tell me what was different. Why did this not match up to the live? Because I'd noticed a long time ago that it has a certain feel to it that you can sit and I've had situations where I've sat several feet away from performances they were, and you feel every note, even if it's a piccolo, it goes right through you. You resonate with it, and audio is really not doing that. Well, there were several advancements that we made in figuring that out, and the one thing we figured was that a speaker had to be as lossless as possible, because it was loss in the speaker that was eliminating that ability to resonate you. And when it resonates you, you become part of the performance, and that's what makes it feel live. So that's what began Alta Audio. And our first product was the Alta Celesta, which has become, it's now the Celesta FRM2M.
The name got longer over time.
That's right. It's been 10 years, but it's become a reference. People consider that a monitor reference speaker. From those sonics came our Alex speakers, our Adams, our Alyssa speakers, our Hestia speakers, and now the new Aphrodite. And let me tell you something. I put a investment in my own feelings about this speaker, because what I haven't told people is that Aphrodite is my late grandmother's name.
Oh, really? That's really
Yeah.
cool.
So I'm honoring her, and I had to be sure that I was honoring her in the product itself too, and what it does. And let me tell you, it does. Uh, we're very excited about premiering this, and we will be showing it for the first time at Expona in April. Um, those who have heard it so far, and it's a very limited number, were astounded. Just simply like a speaker wasn't. Dynamics that are so open that when somebody hits their guitar, the note hits you in the chest the way it does when you're at, that vocals just appear three-dimensional in front of you, setting in space, in a three-dimensional space where you sense the position of it in the stage and the wall. It's like a visual imaging by your ears, that clear. Um, really listening for quite a while and saying to myself, you've got to find something wrong. You've got to fix this. What are you going to fix? Couldn't find anything. It had reached the
That's
point.
amazing.
And, as a designer, I have to tell people it's something that happened. You've hit it. All right. There was a point in time where I was fine tuning the crossovers. The crossovers were sitting in front of the speakers, and I would be putting parts in, taking parts out, trying this and that. And I was finally down to the point that I said, well, just very fine tuning here. And I changed one resistor value so that the value was differed by 0.2 ohms. Now that's well within most people's,
Yeah, like a negligible kind of number. Yeah.
tolerance. It's like,
Yeah.
but we spec our parts much tighter than that. Anyway, I drop the resistor in and I go, it can't make a difference. It's got to be me, So I called my friend in. Eric Lee was visiting me, our dealer from Cinetech in Illinois. And I said to him, come here. I want you to listen to this. And he just, the resistor sitting there. I said, I didn't even want you to see it. I just wanted you to hear. So I sat him down and I had him listen for a while. And then I changed the resistance. And I asked him, well, did you hear anything? He goes, how could it make that big of a difference? It was like, all of a sudden, dunk, it was perfect. And that's when because you're fine-tuning, and suddenly everything lines in such a way that your brain no longer can hear the speaker. It's just gone, and all you hear is the music itself. And proceeded to spend the entire night listening to passage after passage. Try this, try that, and going, whoa, I have never heard it like that. I didn't know that she was doing that with her voice. I didn't know that he was doing that with a guitar. It was really stunning. So I am excited about the Aphrodite, and I think everyone will be when they hear it.
Right on. So let's set the stage a little bit, right? I want to for folks that aren't familiar with the speakers, let's go through, and I'm going to show some of the existing products, right? So it looks like these are the Atoms, and they're three-way. They're oh, it's moving fast. All right. So those, yep. Let me see if I can look at them a better way here. All right. Okay. Here we go. So let's okay. We'll start out with the path that I took. So I think the first ones that I ever heard were the Alyssas.
Yes.
I think so. I think these are the first ones I ever saw. And these are two-way bookshelf speaker stand mount with this beautiful, gorgeous Is it a ribbon?
Yes, it is. It's a pure aluminum foil ribbon.
Awesome. All right, and then for me, the next item up for bids that I saw, um, was the Alec, and I actually spent a little bit of time with a set of Alecs, and they were outstanding in this finish here, the lighter wood finish, and these are also 2 ways, very similar to the Alyssa, but I guess maybe the distinguishing point there would really be the bass output on them. It
Yes.
how would you distinguish between those 2?
Well, I would say that the Alyssa is quite capable of going down into low frequencies, but the Alec goes lower, more powerfully, and um, it will do things in bass that will stun you. Um, Hans Lohman of in Figo was visiting me, and
Mhm,
we were watching Inception, the movie Inception, which is one in which they change realities in it, and it's part of the story. And whenever the reality changes to indicate that, they would throw through a subsonic note that would basically it was like boom, like that,
yeah.
right? Well, we're listening, and this is just over the Alex, nothing else, just the Alex. And they hit that note, and the room shook in such a way that Hans and I turned to each other and just simply, excuse me, but this is what we said. Holy shit. That's unbelievable. And
Awesome.
that's just a pair of 8.5-inch woofers. But the thing is, our technology, the XTL technology, which is in the Alec, and in the Alyssa, and in the Atom, in the Aphrodite, is going to be published by the patent office at the end of the month. And what it's about is understanding what a woofer is actually supposed to do. You know, they call them transmission lines, and the XTL form of transmission line, but it's a very finely tuned transmission line. But the true definition to an engineer of a transmission line is any point at which you transform one form of energy to another form of energy. So, what are we doing actually in loudspeakers? We're converting motion into sound.
Mhm.
Now, a lot of times people will watch advertisements on TV where you see woofers move like crazy and as if that is good bass. Well, when we do demonstrations and we've done them at shows, people are stunned to see woofers hardly move at all while the room has this excellent, deep, powerful dynamic bass happening. And they're like, why? How could that be? You have something else in there. It can't be
Right.
that. And the answer is no. The answer is that we're converting the maximum amount of energy from motion to sound. So the woofer hardly moves because it's put that energy into the air. And also gets rid of that rubbery sound that I consider subwoofer sound, you know? And it's so clean, no longer sounds like a speaker is putting it out. It sounds like the original sound itself. And that's the patent, and it's the basis of all of our design.
Right on. No, that's great. And for the folks that are just joining us tonight, so we have Michael Levy from Alta Audio, and we are currently talking about the product line from Alta Audio and getting some cool little tidbits and stories along the way. Um, and so we're on the Alec now, and then I believe it was at Expona last year was the first time that I had an opportunity to hear the next item, which is the Atom.
And everything that the Alec does, the Atom does more.
Mhm.
As powerful as the bass is on the Alec, the Atom's bass is even more powerful. More, it goes deeper. Mid range has open and dynamic clarity that is absolutely stunning, and the that mid range driver in the Atoms is actually a full range driver that has been crossed over into the tweeter and into the woofer. the effect is it's so smooth and so dynamically open that you don't hear crossover, you don't hear drivers, it just disappears.
Yeah, these were really, really good, and I believe, they were paired with a set of Infigo amplifiers
Yes.
at the show, and those were really outstanding too. That's the first time that I had ever, really looked closely at the Infigo product line. You know, obviously, with your gear, I'd seen that quite a bit before, but that was the first time I had heard the Infigos, and man, they matched really well, and the 2 of you did a really good job of tuning that room.
Well, I have to say that Hans and Matilda are really great at setting up rooms, and they do a fantastic job at every show. Um, Yet, one of the things that we realized is that we both have the same concept of design. You know, we know engineering, we know how to get the right, we know how to get the things that you would test correct. But the most important thing to us is the openness of the sound. The equipment does not impede the sound in any way, shape, or form. His amplifiers have exactly that kind of sound, and the speakers just let it through. So when you hear them as a combination, it's stunning. It really is.
Right on. Yeah, so I can't see the comments from Instagram, in the YouTube feed that we're in now, but, uh, Punk Floyd Four Eyes over on Instagram says that he heard these and was very impressed, paired with the Infigo. He says, "So good," and then gives one of these things. So so good. I can't do an Italian accent, but that's
Yeah,
that's what I
so good.
that's right, so good. And then for the folks that are watching on Instagram, you know, if you want to, feel free to jump over and find me on YouTube and click that subscribe button, and you can have what I think is a slightly better experience with the live streams over with the YouTube feed than what you get on the Instagram. I think it fits the screen a little bit better, a little bit better quality. But I invite you over. Okay, now so this we're getting to the good stuff now. Not that the rest of the stuff isn't good stuff, but this maybe I'll just say we're getting to the new stuff. So let me move
Yes.
this out, and I'm going to uh, share another screen here that's pretty darn cool. All right, here we go. All right, did I get this right? Yeah, I got this right. Okay, this is the grand reveal, and these things are beasts. Oh man, look at this! It's like every step builds, and this is a big step right here.
A
This is a
very
big
big
step.
step.
Could you tell us about these guys?
This is the Aphrodite, and it's named after my grandmother. And therefore, I have a lot of love involved in this speaker, and she is the goddess of love. And what the speaker is about is several different ideas encompassed in one form. First of all, range from subwoofer level out to the tweeter is dipole. And you see in the back, it's just simply there, you know, for aesthetics. It's open to the back. The tweeter and the woofer are monopole, and I'll explain the concept behind it. Most dipoles have the problem that they will diffuse the image a little bit and make it larger than it should be. The reason for that is that the reflection of the higher frequencies confuses the ear in the size positioning, because the human ear works like this. Frequencies in the mid-range are used to figure out the space you are in. Frequencies above about 2 kilohertz, 3 kilohertz are used to find what's inside that space, image what it is. So if it hears something, your ears hear something, the brain looks at these different frequencies in different ways to find exactly what's going on. So it will hear the back wall in the mid-range and know where it is, hear the reflections off of that what's in the space and know what it is, and then listen to the higher frequencies to figure out its shape and detail.
Yeah,
So
that seems like that's our bat senses, right? The echolocation, and which is ultrasonic for them. Yeah, makes sense. Yeah.
As I say, your ears and your brain, they were designed originally to help you either find prey or prevent from being prey.
Right.
So echolocation is very, very important, and also an idea of what it is that you're listening to is very important. So your ears do that, and this design allows the images to be properly sized inside of the stage that they're on, placed, but allows that huge stage size that happens with dipoles. So it gives you this giant stage, and in it you hear each individual standing where it is clearly, and that's amazing. Also, the drivers, all of
Yeah,
the
and we
drivers.
have a question about the tweeter. Bionic Bob says different tweeter. So maybe when you get to that point, you can do a little compare and contrast between the tweeter here and then the tweeter from the other models.
Yes, this is. I will answer his question because he asked, "Is it a RAL?" Yes, it is a RAL, and it is one that is custom designed for us and designed in such a way that the transformer becomes part of the crossover and allows us to have a second order Butterworth tuning. For those of you who know what a second Butterworth tuning is, without having anything more than a single capacitor in with it. And everything else is because of the coil that is involved in the transformer itself becomes an element in the crossover. And the net effect, just simply the less parts, the closer you are to the center. Well, the detail and dynamics are amazing. And then that transformer is an amorphous core transformer that is dynamically. It does not limit, it does not in any way get in the way of the signal getting to the ribbon. And then the ribbon itself has flux density so powerful that we have to ship the speakers with covers over the tweeters, because if any metal close at any point in time, it would just suck it right in.
Right.
So part part of opening them up is the on the packing list. Be sure to remove the covers from the tweeters.
With the covers on, they won't sound nearly as good.
No, I don't think so.
Awesome.
So that is what is an MTM Diapolito design in the way that the mid is aligned with the tweeter. And those of you who know or understand Diapolito know what it means is that you end up with a pulse that is aligned and unlimited, because as the frequencies go, the tweeter sits right in the middle and hits exactly where it needs to combine with the pulse of the two mid-ranges. Then from there, we have the mid-range, the mid-bass coupler, which is an 1/4-inch woofer that has great extension, so it melds into the mid-range very, very well, but also it couples bass seamlessly, giving you details in bass response that you would never expect to be able to hear.
Right on.
And so the subwoofer itself is a up-to-date level of the XTL design, and goes well below 20, so we rate it at 22 hertz.
Awesome. So I think the next question, and so this is like this is the newest of the new, right? And this is
It
the
is.
and will Expona be the sort of the grand release
Yes,
of the speaker? Okay,
exactly.
perfect. Who do you know who you're going to have on the amplifier side for it?
Oh
Is it
no,
going to be
it's already
Infigo?
Hans Lohman, and his latest level of, by the way, he's to analog phono preamplifier, and we will be playing vinyl in addition to the usual digital through his digital to analog converter.
Right.
That, well, he's telling me it's stunning sounding, and I haven't gotten it yet. I'm supposed to get one in a few days, but I can just imagine, because Hans never overstates it. I'm anxious to hear what vinyl will sound like at that level on these speakers.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm looking forward to that too. And then just a couple of shout outs here. It looks like over on Instagram, Quarter Note Acoustics has joined, and I owe him a couple of phone calls from way back. So we'll talk soon. But it's nice to see you out in the audience. And then for everybody else, Punk Floyd 4 Eyes, Bionic Bob, uh, Barang, Marv, Adam, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Please feel free to ask questions if you have any questions or any thoughts, around these speakers, because this is one of my favorite brands from, gosh, for years now. And the astonishing thing is that they get better every time, and I think you're done, right? I'm like, okay, he's not going to do anything else. This is it. And then no, yeah, a couple of years later, here's the next one. I'm like, oh my goodness. And it's really quite amazing how the limits grow. Once you think you've hit the end, well, you haven't really hit the end.
Well, to talk about exactly that, we are moving into a new realm now. What
Yeah, tell us
theater,
about the new realm.
home theater has been a realm that I actually was part of starting home theater, helped introduce the DVD when it first came out. So I'm very interested in home theater, but I always had the problem that I felt that most home theaters were simply incapable of producing music properly. Um, and I always thought that if you used a really good set of audiophile speakers, that you would get both the music and the dimensionality at a level beyond what most people expect from theater. So we've been setting up our systems this way. Now, people had done this in the past and called me and said, great, but don't you make a center channel? And I would answer, but the imaging is fantastic. What do you need a center channel for? And they said, it's in them. You've got to make one. Otherwise, I have to use someone else's, and it just doesn't match up with the quality of the sound of your speakers. So I acceded to the demand. And I can only tell you because at this point I'm listening to the final prototypes that will be producing them in the very near future, and we will debut them after the Exponent show, not at the Exponent show. But a center channel that is dual 7 inchers with a 5 3/4 inch ribbon tweeter in an MTM with an MTM, Apolito configuration with bass down to infrasonics and clarity and detail such that it melds and images and gives you that dynamic openness that you want both in music and in movies. If something's supposed to whack you in a movie, this is going to whack you. If something's supposed to if a guitar is supposed to put out a sound that goes through you, it's going to go right through you. And yet, it's not going to be. It images right in with the left and right, melds in with them beautifully, and gives you that three-dimensionality that we so much appreciate as audiophiles.
Right on. So a couple of call outs here. So HiFi Haven has joined. Welcome. He's here in Colorado with me, so it's always nice to see him in the audience. Symphonics Audio out of Canada has joined. And then Bionic Bob, he says he has to attend Exponent again this year, and he thinks is a very nice looking speaker. He does have a question
Sure.
that you might be able to address. So he owned some Mirage M1s back in the day. And do these, I assume he's talking about the Aphrodites, have a similar placement, particularly
Yes.
from the wall?
Yes. If you don't have the situation to place them at least 3 feet away from the wall, I would suggest the Atoms, not the Aphrodites. As good as the Aphrodites are, the dial configuration needs to open up. So I would say at least 3 feet from the back of the speaker to the back wall is necessary for them. It's part of dipole design, and yes, as he mentioned, Same.
Very good. And then, do you happen to know off the top of your head what the sensitivity for the speaker is?
90 dB, 2.83 volts at 1 meter.
Right. And then we have another question. They're coming in fast and furious. So, um, uh, there's a question around the difference in the bass if you have a front ported or a rear
Right.
ported or even an infinite baffle design, right? So,
Or
Yay B has had that question for a while, and he or she is hoping that you can address that. So, what is the
they
difference?
are there are big differences between them. Um, we choose to use rear ported when the frequencies we are operating the transmission line are low enough that they will not in any way uh, create a boominess or interfere in the room. We use front ported when we are looking for um, a, a little bit more ability to have space uh, around the speaker, and when the frequencies align at slightly higher frequencies. So that's the way we tune it. As far as the difference between XTL bass, which is completely different from ported bass and completely different from open back and completely different from sealed. This goes back to the original theorists and what the those of you who purchased drivers and looked at the specs, they call them the small Teal parameters or Teal Small parameters.
Mhm.
They were named after Neville Teal and Richard Small. And I was a budding engineer when they put out their papers in 1973 and had read those papers thoroughly and had some questions for them because, like any paper, like any scientist, they decided a format of design that limited the amount of things that were variables in the design that they had to look at. So, first of all, they were looking at it as being two-dimensional rather than three-dimensional. But secondly, the I had two questions for them. One of them was, what does a woofer do below resonance frequency on a tune port design? And the answer I got was that it decouples,
Yeah,
which
go
is
nuts.
right, which is the reason why you watch a woofer when it's trying to play very deep bass move like crazy. That's not sound, that's loss of energy, and it's also creating Doppler distortion. So I said, why would you want that? What we would like to do instead is couple with the woofer going all the way down. And the second question was about padding inside of the cabinet, which is a loss factor, and they had put into the equations as a factor. And it's not a single factor, and it was not a linear factor. And the more I worked on it, the more I decided that loss was simply something you didn't want. Um, Looking at the prior art, and to me, the prior art is actually not loudspeakers, but instruments. For instruments have been designed for hundreds of years. And if you take a look at a stand-up bass, for example, well, you've got the strings, and then you have the resonant cavity behind it, which tunes to those strings. And without that resonant cavity, you wouldn't have bass. You wouldn't have the actual power of the instrument. Now, number one, I've never seen one of those designed as a box. They're all shaped in such a way that they reinforce a wide band of frequencies smoothly. And boxes have standing wave resonances, and that was the reason why originally Small and Teal said you would be needing padding in them. Well, my answer to that is no. Design a cabinet that doesn't have the standing wave resonances and take the padding out, and thus the loss, and thus the non-linearities. So that's what we do. Um, and the basis of that design includes also the concept that the tuning to the woofer should be smooth and extend well below resonance. And the point there was that I looked at transmission lines and realized that is how you extend a woofer below resonance. But transmission lines were really at the very beginning of their design. They basically were a um, a pipe organ with padding in it, and that's
Right on.
and that's how they worked. And I didn't want the padding in, but the reason why they put the padding in was because the pipe organ has a single resonant frequency. It doesn't have an extended wide band of frequencies that it reinforces. The way XTL bass is designed, it reinforces the bass over a wide band of frequencies smoothly, couples with a woofer over those frequencies, and solves that problem.
Outstanding, outstanding. I've got another question that is going to lead into a question that I was going to ask, and this really comes down. This is kind of a businessy question, and so for folks that are interested in making a purchase of your speakers, what is the right way for them to do that, right? So, is there a dealer network? Do they go direct? And then Mr. Barzan asks if you have any kind of representation in Germany to make purchases over there. So how do folks who say, okay, I want it, how do they get it?
All right. When you're talking about Germany, unfortunately, I don't have a distributor there yet. I have one in Poland, I have one in Great Britain, I have one in Australia, I have one in Singapore, and in New Zealand, and
Sounds
Canada.
like Poland is the one then. Maybe
But
Great Britain.
yeah, and for him, Poland's not that far away either, so he may well want to contact our distributor. The dealers are listed on the website under where to buy, and you can see both the distributors and the dealers there. And I suggest you contact them. If you're someplace that you're not close enough to a dealer for them to adequately service you, and I would say that would be at least 250 miles away in my mind, you're welcome to contact us about purchasing directly, and we'll tell you how that program works. All right, but we like to sell through dealers because the first thing we want you to hear what you're going to buy and what it's going to sound like. For that is what's really going to hook you.
Absolutely. Yeah, and it's what hooked me so far back. And if folks don't have a dealer nearby, maybe it's time to take a trip for folks in the United States to Expona, right? And take a
Oh, that,
listen. It's a great opportunity not only to hear your gear, but lots of other things that, just there's so many things out there that no single dealer can put it in their shop. So that's a really great way to I guess expand your horizons, so to speak. And I know a lot of people that are watching right now will be at the shows. I know that Symphonics, he'll be there, and I think Punk Floyd Four Eyes will be there. It sounds like Bionic Bob is going to be. So yeah, a lot of folks, and I'll be there for sure, right?
well, I look forward to seeing you and everyone.
Absolutely.
We'll put on a demo for you.
Awesome. Great. So I want to wind the show down with a question, right?
Sure.
So one thing that I've been asked many, many times, and I don't know that I have a really good answer for, and maybe you have a better answer than I have, is what is the difference between speakers built for home theater and speakers built for 2-channel, or I guess in quotes, audiophile music? Is there a design difference? Should there be a design difference, or should there not be? So what is your thoughts around home theater
There is
versus hi-fi?
there is a design difference presently, and I don't believe that difference should exist. The way that most home theaters are designed, the speakers are looked at as the source of the sound instead of the image itself. All right.
Mhm.
Now we know, those of us who have 2-channel speakers, that a pair of speakers can image beyond their width, above their height, depth, three-dimensionally, and therefore the speaker is not, to our ears, the source of the sound. It may be creating the sound, but our ears on the images that they portray. Most home theaters aren't designed with that point of view and have a problem creating that kind of, they simply cannot do it. Our point of view is that you can do this in a home theater and get imaging that is outstanding by placing a pair of speakers properly in the room as audiophile speakers, and then the center channel that we have would sit under the screen, and it's angled in such a way and designed in such a way that it will meld in perfectly. Now, as far as rear channels are concerned, we know that you can have quite a few of them,
Mhm.
Atmos and such. We've had people use our Alyssa's as rear channels. We've had people use our IOs as rear channels, and in multiple rear channels formulations. And the whole concept is to have the match the front, having the same balance and speed and detail, so that again the rear channels also here and create that dimensionality of front to back, additionally to the depth of the front speakers.
Right. So, one thing from my point of view that's very important for home theater, and what's the right term? The brass ring, the epitome of the pinnacle of home theater is exactly what you're saying, right? When you move away from speakers being localized as a point source, so that if you close your eyes, you can say, okay, this sound is playing out of the speaker. Okay, this sound's playing out of the speaker. When it becomes that immersive bubble where you're just sitting inside of a soundscape, right? And things move around, and like you said, there's a solid image of, okay, this is where something is in space, right? And it can move in all dimensions, right? That for me is the goal, right? Of course, you want to have the bass that you can feel and it anchors everything and all those things, but it's really about that bubble that you create for yourself, and the speakers need to go away.
Right, and to do it seamlessly, so that something coming in movie images, you'll have something come from the upper left and across the stage,
Yeah.
past you and out the right, quarter. And in doing that, it has to do it smoothly in such a way that you notice no sonic difference between it, and that balance remains the same, and in images, so that you're completely immersed in the audio version of the visual in 3 dimensions.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. And I'll tell a little story too of some of this stuff really comes down to some level of processing too. So I've got a 744 home theater, so 7 bed channels, 4 subs, and then 4 height channels, right? And the height channels are okay, right? The speakers that I'm using really weren't designed for that application. So I'm sitting pretty far off axis from them. And, once I get to kind of the area where I'm at, it's a little rough for them. And that immersive bubble would be burst from time to time as something would move from down in front of me up through there, and it kind of pull you out just a little bit. But I used a processor recently, and I've been testing this out, and with the DSP built into it, it really helped resolve some of the shortcomings in the placement, and I think in the design, because I'm using these speakers for not for the purpose that they were designed for. They were really just designed to be left, right, create a stereo kind of thing, right, rather than being 60 degrees off axis or something. But it really made a huge difference with a higher or more capable set of DSP and correction of the acoustics for the room electronically. So yeah, that made a big deal. I can't wait to hear like a 5.1 or a 7.1 or something for your stuff, man. I'm excited.
Well, also on the drawing boards are in-wall speakers based on our concept design.
Really?
And
Ooh.
yes, and we're talking about Diabolito, we're talking about Rhythm, we're talking about XTL. So they're going to be able to go deep, powerful, clean, and image off the speaker, not at the speaker, into dimensionality.
Well, the cat's out of the bag now. That's
This was
yeah.
going to be a well.
Nobody out there say anything.
Don't listen, people. Don't say anything.
Don't say anything. All right. No, that's outstanding. And it's like I said, every time I think you've kind of reached the end, you're like, nope, here comes the next one. Man, that's a big one.
Especially the new subwoofer that's coming out. The 12-inch sub is, you're talking about 4 subs. I cannot imagine what 4 of these would be like, because 2 of them, even one of them, is astounding. And 2 of them would be, to me, more than enough for any room. Those of you who want 4, you're welcome to do it.
Certainly. Yeah, you're beating my drum a little bit, right? So for me, having a lot of subwoofers really is about being able to make the bass very even across a large space. It's not just about let's get more decibels in there. Of course, for a lot of people, they just want more decibels, right? And so they're like, let's put in 18 24-inch subs. And I'm like, more power to you. You only need 2 of them, or 1 even, for the right SPL. But
if a pair of 8.5-inch woofers could make Hans and I turn to each other and go, holy crap, think about with 2 12-inch subs tuned down to infrasonics. I mean, these things are going to put out 16 hertz, absolutely zero. I mean,
awesome.
No problem. So, yes, I think people should be excited about that. And its purpose will be best suited when used as an LFE, because when those explosions come along, they're not going to sound like speakers putting them out. They're going to sound like something blew up.
and that's exactly what they should sound like. Okay, we are running toward the end of our time, so I want to go ahead and close this one out. So first, Mr. Levy, thank you so much for joining us. I really appreciate it.
It was a great pleasure.
Absolutely. And then for everybody out there, all the folks in the audience, thank you too. Thanks for joining in. I really appreciate it. It's great to take your questions and hang out for a while and talk about this hobby that we all love so much, whether you're a 2-channel person, a multi-channel person, a streamer, or a vinyl person. I love all of those things, and it's great to have everybody here. Thanks, HiFi Haven, and Bionic Bob, and Punk Floyd 4 Eyes, and Symphonics Audio, and on and on and on and on. Thank you so much for joining. So just a couple other items. I just dropped a review video for a rather inexpensive all-in-one projector system. So I was really surprised by the quality that this little box puts out, and it's made by a company that most often you would think of as making air fryers or kitchen utensils. Paris Roan. They're doing a laser 4K projector with stereo speakers built. It's really crazy. Anyway, go check that one out. Give it a look, everybody. And other than that, thank you so much. Michael, I'll see you again soon.
Thank you.
All right. Take care, everybody. See you in the next one.